Welcome in LSU fans and Arkansas fans for that fact, as the Razorbacks and the Tigers get ready to square off October matchup. It's, I imagine, going to be a little chilly. Trey Biddy from HawgSports in here. Trey, first off, is it going to be a chilly game? Are we going to get a nice little nice fall football weather up there in Fayetteville?
Yeah, it should be pretty nice. I think maybe in the 50s probably for the game, maybe low 60s when it kicks off or something. But yeah, it should be pretty cool. I was looking back at this, Bryce, and it's like you got to go back to 1936, the last time these two teams played in October. Isn't that wild? I mean, like for 30, 31 years or something straight, they played in November. And then last year they played in September. This is the first time. I've even got the record. It's LSU 7, Arkansas 4 in games played in October.
Wow. Wow. It's ever-changing SEC schedule, and this is one, I guess we call it the casualty, but we get this game in the month of October. And Trey, it's two teams that I think that LSU fans are obviously breathing a sigh of relief after what happened in Tiger Stadium, and Arkansas fans, well-rested, I should say, coming into this game with some high hopes. So let's start it right there. What's the mood, the temperature of the fan base entering this week? Big rivalry game and a lot at stake for both teams.
Well, after the Texas A&M game, there was no way that Arkansas could possibly beat Tennessee, and now people are talking about them running the table. It's football's a roller coaster of emotion when it comes to being a fan. So now they feel like they can do anything. So a lot of people picking Arkansas in this one. I think it's going to be a fourth quarter battle, just like it has been each of the last 4 years. I mean, exactly 3 points have separated these teams every year the last 4 years. So I don't know why this would be any different. It's going to be a great environment for a football game. And when you look at across the SEC, at least this was a statistic that I looked at before Arkansas played Tennessee. I was just trying to tell people like, hey, at least, at minimum, it's going to be, a 2-score game, because if you look at the home team either wins convincingly on a range of winning convincingly versus, losing by no more than 2 scores. And I think it was 82% of the games at that point in the SEC. So odds are it's going to be, a game that's going to be worth watching into the fourth quarter, and we'll see who wins. I mean, it's going to come down to the things that it always does. Turnovers, penalties, special teams, injuries always play a big role in these kind of games. When Arkansas doesn't turn the ball over, they have beaten all the Power 5 teams that they've played, but when they've lost the turnover battle, they've lost to Texas A&M, they lost to Oklahoma State, but against Tennessee it was 0-0 and they won that game, and then against Auburn it was 5-2 and they won that game.
You talked about that, and Brian Kelly mentioned a little bit of that in his Monday press conference, just about the fact, the nature that you can't get too high or too low, because this game, as it has historically, is going to come down to a couple of possessions, and like you mentioned, the small details. Let's talk offense right here. Obviously, you have the quarterback Taylon Green, which a lot of people have watched from afar, I guess I would say, from LSU fans. Athletic, can make plays. Talk to us about what percentage of Taylon Green are we going to get out there on the field on Saturday when he goes? Is it 100%? We got a chance to see a little bit of that back up against Tennessee, and just this growth of the offense under Bobby Petrino this season.
I would be surprised if it's 100%. Now, Sam Pittman seems to think there's a chance that he could be at full speed, whatever that means, by the LSU game. Right now, he is not at that. And according to him on Wednesday, his teleconference, he said that Taylon, was not quite there, but they think he can be. So if Taylon Green is not mobile and he's just going to be a pocket passer, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of Malachi Singleton, because Singleton can throw the ball really well and can run also. When you take that aspect away from Taylon Green, it definitely obviously makes him more one-dimensional, but I mean that's a big part of what he does is moving around in the pocket and getting outside. He's a long-bodied, long-stride guy. People take really bad angles on him, and he gobbles up 10 yards in just a couple of steps. So if you take that away from him, it's really going to limit him, I think. And in that case, I think that they should probably go with Singleton more. But I do think that he'll be well enough by the time. Obviously, the bye week came at a really good time for Arkansas. It wasn't just Taylon taking that shot to the knee, but it was other players that they needed to get back. So and it's also interesting, when you go on live bullets versus when you, like, I saw him out on the sideline after he took that hit. He sat out the rest of the series, and then, he's doing drills and stuff and moving side to side. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And the first time in live action when he had to roll right, he clearly was not good. So
Mhm.
what's going to happen when he really tests it, when he really plants that knee? Is it going to be an issue for him? So that remains to be seen. But that's going to be a big part of this game. If Arkansas has Taylor Green, then I absolutely give them a chance to win the game. If they don't, then it becomes a little bit more scary. I mean, you're talking about a young redshirt freshman quarterback and then a veteran redshirt junior on the other side.
Yeah, and you mentioned it right there. It becomes a little bit scary, and LSU fans have maintained they're scared either way with the way that they've seen the SEC schedule go down the first 6-7 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
We talk about that offense as a whole here, Trey. Maybe what are one or two other names that maybe don't pop off the page in terms of stats, but could play a big role in this game for the Razorbacks to win?
Well, Luke has, and that may surprise some LSU fans who pay attention because Luke has had his coming out party last year against LSU. Really talented freshman tight end last year, was hurt actually the week after LSU, the first series against Texas A&M. He broke his collarbone and was lost for the year. He's been dealing with a back issue that has really limited him. When he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in the SEC, and was a guy that I thought would make a serious run at all SEC first team honors. He just hasn't been healthy all year. It seems like every time he catches the ball, he's like, oh, my back. So if he's healthy, if the bye week has been really good for him, then he would definitely be a possibility as a guy that could be a difference maker. I think you said guys that, people don't know. So Andrew Armstrong is a guy that's on pace for a 1,000-yard receiving season. Jaquindon Jackson's one of the top running backs in the SEC, the transfer from Utah. So as far as a guy that you maybe not hear about a lot, I would say Braylon Russell, the freshman running back who came in against against Tennessee and really finished them off in the second half, in the fourth quarter. You had Jaquindon Jackson, who goes about 235, just pounding at him. He's been a workhorse back for him all year. And then you bring Braylon Russell in, who goes 253 pounds after they're softened up a little bit, and really just worked him and moved the ball down the field. He had a really nice finish to the game, was instrumental on that final drive where they went down and scored. So I would say probably if you're looking for a couple of guys that, maybe X factors that people don't talk about a whole lot, probably Luke has and Braylon Russell on offense.
Obviously, LSU's front seven has had this kind of revitalization of under Blake Baker, Kevin Peoples, and Bo Davis. What's the level of concern, if there is? I mean, I know Sam Pittman's bread and butter is offensive line, and I believe you and I talked last season. That was one of the weaker links at times for this unit. What's the level of comfort heading into this game where you have a guy on the edge in Braden Swinson, who's top 5 in the country in sacks, and Savion Jones, who's held his own as well?
Yeah, I know Kevin Peoples. He was up at Arkansas not long ago. Yeah, I would say I think there's got to be concern because Arkansas's offensive line, while it's vastly improved over last year, it still has some issues. They played their best game against Tennessee, and but LSU, I mean, they're averaging 3.5 sacks a game to lead the SEC. Really doing a great job getting after the quarterback, and Arkansas has been susceptible to giving things up. Certain types of blitzes seem to confuse the offensive line, but they did get a lot better against Tennessee, and I have no reason to think that they won't continue to get better. But I don't think there's any question that LSU is going to cause them some issues on Saturday.
Talk defensively here. Arkansas's defense, there's obviously a big name on that front seven that LSU fans are keeping an eye on, who's been very good in his own right. What are some of the names, and what's kind of your expectation for against an LSU team that hasn't run the ball that well? Their bread and butter is the pass, and how does that matchup kind of work for this Razorbacks defense?
Yeah, well, I think it's really impressive that LSU has thrown the ball per game, I guess, more than anybody in the conference, and has only given up 2 sacks. That's a really impressive statistic. Arkansas has gotten better at getting to the quarterback. Landon Jackson's obviously starting to come on. I think he's at 2.5 sacks right now on the year, and had sacks in each of the last 2 games. 6'7", 280 pounds, future NFL guy, who was a really nice get for Arkansas after transferring from LSU. They've got a really veteran defensive line. I know LSU also has I think there's 127 starts up front for LSU on that offensive line. But I think that's going to be one of the really interesting matchups. Arkansas, not only on the edge against those 2 veteran tackles, but on the interior too. Landon Jackson's a senior. Eric Gregory is a 6-year senior, multi-year starter also. Cam Ball is a redshirt junior who I think has next-level ability also. And Nico Dabier on the left-end spot, who's a junior, and Anton Junkaj, who's a 6-year senior transfer from Albany, who had 15 sacks last year on the Division II level. Both those guys kind of rotating around. They've got some, and Kiwi Rose too, from Louisiana Tech transfer, who has played a lot for them. Started some games last year for them also on the interior. So they've got a pretty veteran group up front. I think that'll be a really intriguing matchup to watch. LSU's veteran offensive line versus Arkansas's veteran defensive line.
Yeah, it feels like a common theme when we talk LSU. They go to South Carolina, who has a really good front seven. Ole Miss in that front seven. Then now, once again, we talk about another physical football game that looks to be on hand over there in Fayetteville.
That's another good. Like, I watched that South Carolina game, and South Carolina came out so hyped, and they just felt like they were clobbering LSU. But you look at the score, and it's not that different, I think that's another key to this game is Arkansas can't act like they won the game just because they come out hyped and something good happens early on. They've got to understand. So, you had LSU was just kind of steady, and won when it mattered. I think that's a big aspect of this game too, is not to try to win the game in the first quarter.
Well, and that's something, Trey, LSU has learned. We talked with players last night. That was kind of the mood on the sideline out in Vegas Labor Day weekend when they were up on, South Carolina with 8 men, or USC, not the other USC. The USC, the Trojans out there when they were up on them, kind of that mood of, hey, we feel like we've won the game, and then they obviously let it slip away. We're going to get you out of here, but before we do, Trey, we do this for all of our guests. I'm going to give you a sentence, and you kind of answered it with that previous thought right there, but Arkansas wins this game if. What are one or two things that have to happen? We know turnovers, we know all the the X's and O's factor, but what are some things that you need to see, and you can say, hey, Arkansas is going to win this game if they do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I mean, you take a lot of my examples out of there: turnovers, penalties, special teams, and injuries. Those are always big ones, aren't they? But yeah, I mean, if Arkansas does well in those, then they win the game. I would think also if Arkansas can protect Taylon Green or Malachi Singleton if we see Malachi. But that's going to be a big part of it. I mean, LSU has been so good at getting to the quarterback, 3.5 sacks. Arkansas has got to do a good job of staying in front of the chains, staying ahead of the chains, and not taking sacks and things like that. So, and also I would say we've seen Taylon Green where he has had really, really off days where he looks like he's afraid to make a mistake and, won't put the ball in position for, a receiver to just make a play on the ball, won't trust himself.
Yeah.
That kind of went away. I think that confidence issue went away against Tennessee. So I would say him playing with confidence and not being scared to make a throw. And I think that's something that kind of started to creep in somewhere around during the process of that Oklahoma State game that Arkansas should have won and let slip away.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing is to play with a free mind, clear mind, and let it rip. And he's a guy that it feels like when he does that, he's most effective. Trey, we appreciate it. Before we get you out of here, man, if LSU fans want to hear more, they want to see more, where can they find your work and that whole team over there with Arkansas?
Yeah, of course. Go to HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. We're part of the 24/7 Sports Network also, so not too hard for your followers and subscribers to find. And you can follow me at Trey Biddy, TreyBiddy, if you're interested in following us on Twitter.
Trey Biddy of HawgSports previewing LSU-Arkansas. Going to be a fun one inside Fayetteville on Saturday. We can't wait for it. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for listening on all those platforms. And we'll catch you next time. We got a full preview from the LSU side of things coming out tomorrow. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.